Mechanic Joseph Thomason, may I speak with you? Joseph, or Joe, like his friends and crewmates were calling him, looked up from the conversation he was having towards the approaching insectoid. Sure, Clicks. What's it about? The short, round being, with a shiny green-blue carapace, tilted his head while swaying his antenna and made some clicking sounds with his mandibles. Joe's translator reacted without delay, telling him what Clicks was saying. Earlier, I overheard you having a conversation with Task Manager Todd Howard, and you said something that didn't seem logical. I assume you used a figure of speech, like you hew and call it, and I was wondering if you could explain it to me. Ah, that made sense. The insectoid Crixie Dixie were one of the most friendly and curious races in the galaxy, and no one was surprised when they were the first race to agree to the exchange program the Earth government proposed, eager to learn more about the humans. And so far it went well, with the exception for one little detail. As a hive species, the Crixie Dixie were rather literal-minded, and had problems to grasp the concept of idioms. Combine that with the fact that the universal translators only translated the direct meaning of a spoken sentence, and misunderstandings were guaranteed. Which was why the crew of the Aurora Borealis had to explain to their guest, researcher Crixie Distri, or simply Clicks, more than once what they meant, which usually led to some interesting conversations. The small group of crew members on the table were now paying attention to Clicks, clearly interested of what the bug wanted to know, including Officer Irene Chiara, one member of the security team. Sure thing, Joe agreed. What do you want to know? Clicks tilted his head in the other direction before he spoke. During your conversation with Task Manager Todd Howard, you mentioned Security Irene Chiara and commented that she was carrying a large shelf with her, but she was never seen to carry a shelf around, nor would it be part of her duties. Can you explain what you meant? Joe was confused. When did he ever say Irene would carry a large shelf? Oh crap. Joe's face dropped as he realised what exactly Clicks was talking about, and the silence of some as the snicker of other crew members told him that they knew as well. Yes, Joe, Irene said in an absolute chilling tone, while she stared at him in a way that promised him a walk through the airlock, if he couldn't save the situation somehow. What did you mean? Joe needed a way out. Maybe he could play dumb or convince everyone that Clicks misheard. I don't think I know what you're talking about. Are you sure I meant a shelf? Clicks seemed to think about it. Maybe Joe might actually make it out alive, despite the amusement of the crew and the very judging look from Irene. Oh, and the snickering from Todd beside him, as if that idiot wasn't in danger to be thrown out of the airlock as well. Now that you mentioned it, it wasn't the word shelf you used, Clicks finally said, to Joe's relief. I think you used the word rack. Is it not a synonym for a shelf? And he was dead. Deader than dead. There was now no way he could get out of this alive, let alone with his dignity. I see, Joe said. Well, I wasn't really talking about a shelf, or an actual rack, but something about Officer Chiara's appearance. Screw getting thrown out of the airlock, Joe wanted to jump out of it himself, if he could escape Irene's wrath. I see. What was it you were talking about? Clicks asked with the innocence of someone who really never had to deal with something like that, leaving Joe to struggle to find an answer. Well, you see, that is a little bit. He was talking about her breasts, Todd said, nudging his elbow into Joe's side like the arsehole he was. The rest of the crew clearly found that amusing as well, except for Irene, who was blushing just as much as Joe thought he himself was. And of course, Clicks, in his merciless naivety, had to dig further. Why was the anatomy of Security Irene Chiara and the size of this portion of her body a topic to discuss? Is she ill? What? No, Joe nearly yelled. No, that's not... Man, how do I explain this? You did study a lot of species and their mating habits, right? It is a part of my duties as a researcher drone, Clicks confirmed. And you know how a lot of species have something like a mating cycle? Clicks confirmed this again, and the group around the table was waiting where Joe was going with that. Even Irene looked more curious for now, so maybe he could get out of it alive. Or at the very least, she would give Joe the chance to knock out Todd Howard first. Well, you see, we humans don't really have that, so we kind of notice signs of a potential mate even if we don't really look for one. I see, Click said. Considering humans are mammals, are you saying the size of Security Irene Shiara's breasts are a sign that she would make a good mate for producing a healthy offspring? The entire table erupted in laughter, with Todd being the loudest because, of course, he would be. While Joe was contemplating if he could reach the airlock before Irene could catch him, which was very, very unlikely. And speaking of Irene, a short glance showed that she was again turning beet red, but Joe could swear he saw a little smirk at the corner of her mouth. Maybe he had a chance to get out of it alive. Well, not exactly. There are many other factors that can vary, and, well, they aren't the only thing that determine if we like someone. What do you mean? Clicks asked. The crewmates around the table were, again, very interested, some with clear anticipation in their eyes. And even Irene looked at Joe like she was expecting something. Joe stilled his nerves. He dug himself this deep. Could as well finish the metaphorical hole he was in. Well, sure. Irene is good looking. Not just her chest, but her strong legs and arms, or her hairs as well. Don't forget her butt you mentioned earlier, Todd chimed in. Thanks, Todd. Why don't you go out and jump out the airlock now? Joe replied, before turning back to Clicks, desperately avoiding eye contact with Irene. Anyways, those are only physical traits. They're not all what makes someone attractive. Clicks tilted his head again, his antenna swaying between Joe and Irene. What else would tell you Security Irene Shiara would make a good mate? And here they go, no turning back now. Well, there would be the fact that she always has your back. I mean that she is someone you can trust with that. Joe cleared before Clicks could get confused by this idiom. She's always honest with you, has great taste in pizza and a sense of humour, and well, the way she keeps her honestly insane workout routine is really amazing, which really shows. Joe stopped himself and shot a quick glance towards Irene, who was blushing but also smiling. At the very least, she didn't look like she would murder him anytime soon. I see, Click said. Physical signs serve to attract the attention of a possible mate, leading to discovery if social behaviour is compatible, which leads to emphasise physical attributes beneficial for reproduction if needed. Is this correct? Joe shrugged. Kinda. To be honest, the whole thing is complicated for us humans as well. Click swayed his antenna a bit, processing the informations. I see, but why did you use figure of speech when describing your attraction for Security Irene Shiara? Wouldn't it be better to announce your willingness for courtship? Irene turned completely red again, and nearly choked, and Todd was howling with laughter. The rest of the people around were either joining Todd laughing or looking at the scene with their jaws at the floor. Joe himself was blushing and needed a moment to find his words again. I mean, if I would... Okay. Give me a moment. God, shut up, Todd. Look, Clicks, I said that we kind of don't have a mating cycle and we notice such things even if we don't look for a mate. Yes. Does that mean you are not attracted to Security Irene Shiara? What? No, yes, I mean... That's not what I'm getting at. Joe took another deep breath. Look, the fact is that the possible partner isn't interested in a courtship, and pursuing it and talking too much about it is considered to be rude. Remember Crewman Summers, who was kicked off the ship at the station we were docking last month? I do, Clicks confirmed. He commented to some of the female crew members about their appearance. They didn't seem to like it. Now that was an understatement. The guy was harassing every female crew member he came across to a point where Irene nearly had thrown him out of the airlock, if the chief security officer hadn't stopped her. I think I understand. You used a figure of speech in order to not upset Security Irene Shiara until you could be sure that she would not be insulted. Yeah, let's go with that. Joe glanced towards Irene, who was shaking her head with a smirk. As she noticed him looking at her, she suddenly mouthed, "Bullshit," which he answered with a simple shrug of his shoulder. Thank you, Mechanic Joseph Thomason. I appreciate your help. No problem, Joe said, with a relieved sigh. He couldn't believe he had actually survived. and even with a tiny sliver of dignity. Not even Todd's comment about finally admitting his crush towards Irene could bother him at this moment. Then Clicks turned around and addressed Irene. "Security Irene Chiara, I overheard you the other day mentioning that you suspect mechanic Joseph Thomason to hide a large male chicken in his uniform. Considering that this seems dimensional impossible, were you also referring to a part of his anatomy you deemed too attractive?"